went looking for trouble. And boy, I found her. She's in love with herself. She likes the dark. Grey Wolf Studios.
What's up, guys? It's me, Grey Wolf, here to do another video for you. This video is the latest installment of my multi-part video series for the beginning RC enthusiast in electrics. Whether you're brand new to the hobby and decided to go for electrics first, or whether you've been in the nitro side of things for a while and you're deciding to get your feet wet in the electric side, these videos are geared toward you. There will be some intermediate stuff touched on here and there, but most of what I'm going to go over here is just the basic knowledge that you really need to be able to make informed decisions and stuff, as you know, as to how to what gear to buy, how to maintain your gear, things like that. And anyway, this video is going to be on what to look for in a LiPo charger. Now, all LiPo chargers everywhere do two basic things: they charge and they discharge. Some of the newer ones, well, actually, virtually all of the newer ones, new being anything made in the last probably 2 to 3 years, all of the newer ones have built-in balance ports. So that's one thing you want to look for. Built-in balance ports allows you to do balance charges, whereas before, if you have an older setup like what I do, my very first LiPo charger was a Duratrax Ice charger, and it did not have built-in balance ports. You had to buy a separate passive standalone balancer called, well, there was many different ones out there. The one that I bought was probably one of the most famous ones for its time, which was called an Astro Blinky. I still have that charger and the Astro Blinky, although they've been retired and replaced. I don't use them anymore. The ones with the built-in balancers are much easier, much faster to use, and I have higher powered chargers now than what the Duratrax was. But anyway, so moving on, you definitely want to look for built-in balance ports. I would say, just to make sure you cover all the bases, make sure you get a LiPo charger that can handle up to 6 cell LiPos. That's generally the biggest cell LiPo you'll see in the hobby, unless you go above 1/8 scale. You start getting up into the giant scale stuff, then you might exceed that. But as long as you're planning on staying in 1/8 scale and under, 6 cell capability is more than enough. Nothing 1/8 scale that I'm aware of or under runs on, at least the ground vehicles run on more than 6S LiPo. So make sure you can do that. I personally prefer the middle of the road powered chargers. I don't think you necessarily, unless you just have a need or a want for something that's like seriously high powered, you can totally get by I've gotten by quite happily on my chargers, which one of them is a 200 watt charger, one of them is a 150 watt charger, and the other one is an older charger. It was top of the line for its day. I still get some use out of it now. It's good for charging LiPo packs. It's good for charging LiPo packs. It's good for charging NiCads and IMHs and all that. But so I do still use it, but it's only I want to say it's 100 or 120 watt charger. It only does up to 7 amp charges, whereas my other two will do up to 10 amps a piece. So Now, if at 10 amps, you're capable. If you remember back, or if you've been going through these videos and series, if you look back at the Lipo video series, we talked about C ratings and things of that nature. Most lipos are charged at most people charge their lipos at a 1C rating, which your standard 5,000 milliamp pack would be 5 amps, because 1C, like we talked about if you don't understand the C values, go back and watch the lipo videos in this series. I explain all that there. So anyway, your average pack is going to be about 5,000 milliamps, whether it's a 2 cell pack or whether it's a 6 cell pack. 5,000 milliamps is pretty standard size pack. Now, there's a little bit of variances here and there. Sometimes you might see a 4800, sometimes you see a 5300, whatever. But 5,000 is pretty standard, so we'll go, and it's easy to do the math with, so we'll just use that as an example. So a 1C charge is 5 amps for a 5,000 milliamp pack. 10 amps would be a 2C charge. So as I was saying, most people typically will charge their stuff at a 1C rate, but having a 10 amp capability allows you to, in those times when you're really rushed and really in a hurry and you need to get a bunch of batteries charged as quickly as possible, you can bump it up to a 2C rating and cut your charge times almost in half. It doesn't cut them quite in half, but it does cut a significant amount of time off the charge. So, okay, so far we talked about balance ports, built-in balance ports, storage charge, being able to do a storage charge. I personally would recommend that you get something in the probably 150 to 400 watt range, depending on what your price is, or your budget is. If you're on a budget, look at hobbyking.com for chargers. They have a huge selection of chargers, a lot of which are very reasonably priced for the options and the power wattage ratings that you can get them for. The downside to those type of chargers, and really to most LiPo chargers, is most of them only run off of DC power. Usually somewhere between 12 volt and probably 12 to 20 volts or so. I think about 12 to 18 is probably average voltage for a charger to run on. So you can hook it up to a car battery, or a standalone converter, AC to DC converter. You can hook them up to those. You can actually build your own power supply for them if you have a little bit of if you're a little bit tech savvy, and you happen to have an extra 4, 5, 600 watt power supply laying around. Actually, you could probably even go all the way down to 300 watts if you're only trying to run one charger. If you have an extra PC power supply laying around, you can actually convert that to run your LiPo chargers, which is what I did. I actually have a 550 watt one that runs 2 of my chargers. The third one is AC or DC, either one. So I just use AC for it. But that leads me into my next thing to look for. Some people prefer or just have to have one that can run off of AC power. The problem with those is that most of them are very low wattage chargers, because it actually takes sorry about that. That was an alarm on my phone going off that I'd set like 3 days ago and still haven't turned it off for some reason. But anyway, The AC adapter ones are usually pretty low amperage or wattage ratings, um, because it takes an enormous amount of I mean, it takes, if you find, most lipo chargers are fairly compact, but the ones that run off AC power, well, they have to have a built-in AC to DC power converter. Well, in order to have one that is high powered and runs off of AC current, it would have to have a giant. I mean, the AC to DC power converter would probably be bigger than the charger itself. So it's just not very practical. Um, but if you want something that's cheap, and you're not, you have to have AC power for whatever, you just don't have it in your budget to buy a power supply, you don't have a PC power supply to convert, whatever, that's fine, do what you got to do. But what I suggest is investing in a good converter, or building your own from a PC power supply, and getting a couple of higher wattage, faster chargers. So anyway, AC DC, compatibility, may be something that you want to look for in a power supply. That's completely on you. Let's see what else. Some of the really high-end chargers, and you have to up into the pretty expensive chargers to find this feature. But if you can swing it, a nice feature to have in a LiPo charger is the feature to be able to read the internal resistance of each cell in the LiPo. Um, you can use those readings to kind of monitor pack health, if you will. And there's some various videos already out on the web about reading internal resistances and whatnot. You can look those up. I don't have one of those videos myself, but I do actually have. If you're interested in doing the PC power supply mod, I actually do have a video out there on how to do that, so you can look in my videos for that if you're interested. What else? Another big thing that gets overlooked by a lot of people, even people that have been in electrics for a while, is the discharge rate, the charge slash discharge rate, that the charger can do to each individual cell. The higher the rate that it can manipulate each cell, the faster it can balance, and faster it can balance charge. So that's something that's, you can have two 200-watt chargers, and one of them may charge faster than the other because the slower one may be able to charge or discharge an individual cell by, say, 200 milliamps, and the other one might be able to do 300 milliamps. Well, the one that can do 300 milliamps is gonna balance the cells and ultimately get your charge done faster than the 200 milliamp one. So that's another thing to look for there. And I think that about covers most of the additional features. I don't know, some of the really high end chargers may have even more features than that. If they do, I haven't gotten that far myself yet. I'm still running off of two kind of middle of the road chargers and one old charger that used to be a high end charger back in its day. So anyway, at some point, if and when I ever do, decide to shell out a couple $100 for, a high-end 1,000-watt charger with all the bells and whistles, then maybe I'll come back and make a follow-up video to this, and and kind of compare basically, and make a video on, you know, what additional features do you get? Is it worth the money? You know, that kind of thing. But anyway, that about covers it for this video. So I think I'm going to wrap it up here and come back for the next part. If you want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me one of two ways. You can get a hold of me either on Facebook, on my Facebook page, which is www.facebook.com/Graywolf Studios 74, or you can send me an email at graywolfstudios74 @gmail.com. That's it for me. Peace. I'm out.